no top draft pick, but as I said, I think this was a team that could handle that. They only had four, count them, four draft picks. What I like is that even though they only had four and only two in the top 5 rounds, I thought the players they added were good players. They added talent to their team. They got another running back, so that's nice. They got an underrated receiver, and their biggest move was the corner, Cam Smith, who, this where they picked him was fine. So, what do you think about those four players?
I was a little confused on the pick only because they're pretty strong at corner, and you knew that they were coming to this draft with a very limited amount of draft picks, and they just sent some resource. They just traded for Jalen Ramsey. They already have Xavier Howard. They had probably the best undrafted free agent last year in Kohu. They have Nick Needham coming back. I mean, they even said post-draft that we always need more cornerbacks, and they ran into an issue last year, right? And they just said, hey. And Cam Smith was good value at that point. You asked me last year this time if Cam Smith's going to be round 2. I said, no way. He'd be a first-rounder. So, he's got outside-inside versatility, which is important. He can back up multiple spots. But I thought they could have gone in a different direction with that pick. I love the 2 offensive guys they brought in with their next 2 selections in relation to what this scheme is and what they want. They want to be the fastest team in the NFL. So they got the fastest running back in the draft. A guy that's not going to be an every down guy. He's not going to be their number 1. Maybe might not even be their number 2. But and they usually do want to wait for late in the draft to draft a running back. The last time they drafted a running back this high was Kenyon Drake, which was 2017, I believe, or 2016.
But now, like you said, this is a different offense.
Yeah, and their goal, just like some defenses want to confuse the offense, their goal is to be faster than everyone, and that's what they have to do. They have to build the personnel. So I love teams that lean into the philosophy, whether it's a good philosophy or not. They leaned into it pretty hard. Elijah Higgins, to me, is the name to keep an eye on in this draft because they're listing him as a tight end right now. They're not even going to bother with him being a wide receiver. He's 234 pounds, and he runs a 4.55. So now you're talking about, okay, this kid is an Evan Engram type athlete, Evan Engram type body. As a first-round pick, you don't want that, but you're getting him in the 6th round, and this is a team that got kind of pushed Mike Gesicki to the side. It's just not what they want to do at the tight end position. So I'm just really intrigued with how they're going to use him. A matchup nightmare potentially if he can clean up some of the routes.
Well, he'll probably play slot a lot, don't you believe?
Yeah, he'll play slot. Yeah, because I think they have a body there at tight end that's going to have, when they do inline tight end. Durham Smythe again, Eric Saubert, guys that are not going to turn heads, but they do that particular job well. They can play in line, they can win in short areas, contested situations. But I think Higgins is going to be the guy that they use the most in that F tight end role.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember reading this, and because our lads, some of their notes on Higgins, let's see, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, distributed muscle mass and vertical speed. Give him a running back type description. Talk about his uniqueness to this game with his body type, and worked out of the slot, measures in closer to a tight end than a receiver. But make no mistake, this is a full-blown wide receiver. So
yeah, and that's why it's like we keep bringing up Buffalo. Like Dalton Kincaid, listed as a tight end, has the body of a tight end. His position on the football field will be wide receiver in terms of what we know it as. You're not going to see the kid with the hand in his dirt. So if you don't know much, you're just watching the game from a bird's eye lens. Hey, that's a wide receiver, but he brings that tight end slot receiver type impact to the game. And I think he could do it pretty early too. He's another smart kid, knows the game well, does a lot of little things really well.
And by the way, and some of the players, and again, with only a certain amount of picks, there's only so much you could do. But we said it, adding another running back, and do they really have a number 1? Not necessarily do they have to go down that road, but Achane, talent-wise, I mean, is he mostly effective in this type of system? A guy that is going to be one of the guys, or could he be more than that?
I think he's going to be one of the guys. Just measures in under 190 pounds, and his game is all about just build up speed. Can you get him a window and just let him get vertical? And if he gets an inch, he's taking a yard. If you give him a window, you're not catching him from behind. And, again, Texas A&M offense, a train wreck this past year. They just did not do a good job of manufacturing. So I think Dolphins might have even gotten a little bit of a discount on what he can be at the next level. So getting him in the third round with I think, McDaniel could potentially be one of the best offensive minds. We have to see a little bit more. We have to see him do it more than a season. But this is the kind of guy, it's like Andy Reid almost, right? I don't want to put him in that tier yet, but you put the right talent in that system with him, he's going to make it work.
We also said they needed to bring in another offensive lineman, whether it was a right tackle or a left guard. That is something that they were unable to do, with the exception of adding Ryan Hayes in round 7. Hayes, big guy and all that. Do you give Hayes a shot at a starting role at some point in his future?
I do. I have. I just don't know if it's going to be guard or tackle. I lean more towards guard. I don't think he's that far off where Liam Eichenberg is, who's their starting left guard right now. He got injured a couple times last year. He's been underwhelming. He failed at tackle. They're trying him at guard now. Robert Jones is another guy there that I think they have some long-term hope in. But Hayes, his best tape against his best competition, he did a really good job this year. He doesn't always make it look pretty, and I kind of bumped him down after the Senior Bowl. I thought he had a rough week there. He got beat up a little bit with some of the high competition. But there's enough tape on him from Michigan that makes me think he could at least be a 6th lineman. The number 1 guy off the bench that at some point is probably going to start some games because of injuries.
We also said they needed a number 1 tight end. So, you throw Higgins in the mix. And we were wondering about a slot. Well, you throw Higgins in the mix. So they kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone in a way. But they still have to maybe fill both of those roles by next year. And maybe a little additional help at inside on the defensive line, unable to really do that. And did feel they needed some depth at corner because, remember, we said even though the kid had a really good year last year out of nowhere, it's still you got to be careful about that stuff because you never know. A full year, tape on them, and all that stuff, and maybe that's part of the reason that they went with Cam Smith, who could very well have been the top guy on the board. And why don't we just bring in a guy who is? I mean, look, he's just more talented than the kid anyway.
Absolutely. So
you can understand.
And you have to think that Vic Fangio can make something work there. You just have to trust that defensive mind that, I'm sure he kind of banged the table a little bit for another corner. And if he says, get me another corner, you get him another corner.
And by the way, it's not that Howard and Ramsey are young pups anymore. So
right. You're right.
Now they've got their young corner with top ability. Was there a player that they signed we should be keeping an eye on?
Aubrey Miller, linebacker, Jackson State. He's a true Mike. And, we've talked about Channing Tindall a few times. Can he be that guy? We just don't know. They bring in David Long. They have Jerome Baker. But Aubrey Miller is like that instinctive, maybe not as fast, not as explosive, but kind of interior run defender that makes a lot of good decisions, reads the action really well. I bet he makes his team as a special teamer, but could kind of leapfrog to get that number 2, second string Mike linebacker spot.
All right.